Moving on, a new interagency task force was set up last week to address the problem of violence within families as well as to give better support to victims. Co-chaired by Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Home Affairs Sun Xueling and Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Social and Family Development Muhammad Faisal Ibrahim, the task force aims to increase public awareness of the issue and come up with initiatives like a dedicated national hotline for victims of family violence. This comes against the backdrop of increasingly violent family abuse cases, with victims reporting more acts of violence in their applications for personal protection orders. Well, Ms. Sun Xueling is here in the studio to tell us more. Welcome.
Hi, Olivia.
So, Ms. Sun, let's take a step back first of all. What constitutes family violence or abuse? Is it just necessarily physical harm?
Okay, the Women's Charter actually covers 4 types of family violence, which includes causing hurt knowingly, putting a person in a position where he fears being hurt, continual harassment, as well as wrongful confinement. So it's not just about being physically assaulted. If you're harassed continuously, that also constitutes family violence.
I see. So the types of violence in 2019 jumped by 21% last year compared to 2016. Could you explain this spike? Would you even say that it is a significant spike?
Actually, if you take a step back, when a person applies for a personal protection order, actually in his application, he can indicate what type of family violence has he suffered from. So I mentioned earlier that there are 4 types of family violence. So the 21% spike that you talked about, it could be attributed to reasons, for example, such as greater awareness of what constitutes family violence. So in his or her personal application for a personal protection order, he may have indicated more than one type of family violence that he or she had actually suffered from. Another possibility is that the assailant or the perpetrator of violence could have gotten more aggressive. And that's why we actually have to understand the root causes more. And that is why an interagency task force has been set up between the Ministry of Social and Family Development as well as the Ministry of Home Affairs. We hope to work with obviously the government agencies, community service providers, try to understand the root causes more about what are really the triggers of family violence and what might be the best forms of interventions to prevent and deter these abuses from happening.
I see. So there's, I guess under this task force, there's something called, or maybe this is already existing, the Home Team Community Assistance and Referral Scheme, or Home Team Cares. So how does Home Team Cares differ from what's already in place at the moment, and how will that be beneficial for victims of family abuse?
Okay. Currently, every year, about 2,000 reports are made to the police about offences that could include criminal force, hurt, that involves family members. So we want to be able to intervene in a more upstream manner to identify the root causes of this family violence. So we actually piloted this Home Team Cares scheme at Bedok Division in January 2019. So we basically situated social workers, trained social workers, in the police NPC, and we actually referred offenders to the social workers, and the social workers will interview the offender to try to understand what are some of the socio-economic reasons behind why he or she may have committed the offence. So let me give you an example. There was a case whereby a man was being investigated for a rash act. The rash act he committed was that he actually caused issues at his tenant's place during a dispute. And when the social worker interviewed the offender, the social worker found out that actually the offender was suffering from stress. He had young school-going children, and he needed to take care of them. He was suffering from work stress. So the social worker actually intervened by finding after-school support for the offender so that the offender could actually concentrate on his work more. And that meant that there was a reduction in stress. It was more likely that he would not commit the offence again. So that's how a social worker can actually work with the police to work in an upstream manner and see how we can intervene more effectively in such family violence situations.
So you use the term upstream, and I guess the social worker comes into the picture much sooner under Home Team Cares.
Yes. The social worker is able to interview the offender, to triage, to refer the offender to downstream more community service organizations that can help him or her. Right. And actually, we're going to expand this so that the next of kin of the offenders can also benefit from it. So in a family violence situations, you could have victims that involve the family. So we'll also speak, the social worker, the home team cares officer, will actually speak to the family members as well and see how to also help the family members of the offenders.
I see. Well, Ms. Su, let's change the subject for a little bit. A big push for quality preschool education was announced at Budget 2020. What are the benefits and how can young parents make the most out of this scheme?
Okay, one of the key announcements was about increasing the number of government-supported preschools from above 50% now to about 80% in the near future. And when we talk about government-supported preschools, what it actually means is that the anchor operators and the partner operators of these preschool places, they actually have a fee cap. And with that fee cap, actually the preschool fees are actually kept and made more affordable for parents. So in the medium term, when the government steps up the number of places from 50% to 80%, as I mentioned, there will be greater control over how fees are being set in industry. So that's going to be beneficial to young parents. So for instance, a young family, a young needy family, may only pay $3 to $5 a month for preschool education. And what's very important is that there's also been an increase in additional subsidies. And the household income cap for the application of the additional subsidies has gone from $7,500 to $12,000. Right. So what that means is that more families are now eligible to apply for additional subsidies, and therefore the overall amount of out-of-pocket expenses that they'll come up with for preschool education will be substantially lowered.
Right.